So there's this guy that's been trending everywhere recently. Chances are you've seen him on your front page, whether that's on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. If you're on the internet, you've probably seen him. Maybe you've initially seen him through other various reasons.
Lies, tell me lies, baby, tell me how you hate me, hate me, still trying to replace me, chase me.
And that's totally not including me by any chance. But no, sadly for you, we're not going to be talking about his washboard Greek statue abs. We're going to be talking about something that is equally impressive. That is his feats and the mindset that got him to the finish line in the first place. If you don't know by now, I'm talking about the one and only Alex Honnold. Alex Honnold is an American rock climber that is mostly known for free soloing El Capitan and as of recently Taipei 101. If you don't know what free soloing is, the best thing about it is that we never have to do it ever in our lives. It's completely voluntary. But essentially, free soloing is climbing really tall things without barely anything at all. No ropes, no carabiners, no equipment, nothing but your hands and feet that the good Lord gave you. Of course, you got the standard rock climbing shoes and maybe powdered chalk. Other than that, you don't have anything. The goal is to get to the top without dying. Simple as that. And Alex is really good at it. And studying him as of recently, he's painted a whole new world for how I now view the sport of free soloing. As I said earlier, Alex is mostly known for free soloing the structures Taipei 101 and El Capitan. My research for making this video was essentially going onto Netflix and watching the two films made about those events. I've also looked at interviews here and there. I've seen his TED Talk. I've also seen his videos that he's done with Wired. But really, it's the film specifically about those two events that got me a real good look into the mind of Alex Honnold. Just recently, literally, I would say like 4 or 5 days ago, I started noticing and tuning in. And once I was tuned in, I became super invested. So naturally, I'm really hooked at this point, and I decided to watch Free Solo. And boy, was that something special. Not only did it show how batshit insane it was to scale something like El Capitan, but it also showed the training, like the physical and mental training Alex undertook in order to get himself prepared to climb it. It was insane. It was super inspirational, and honestly, I recommend it to everyone. I didn't think I would be so invested in a documentary about some guy climbing something really tall, but they did a really good job making this. And that's where the meat of this video is at. Because like I said earlier, I looked at a lot of other forms of media about this guy or even from this guy. Free Solo is the one that really helped me the most in, I don't know, I guess being fascinated about him. I'm more fascinated about his philosophy than the things that he's done. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I watched Free Solo, I made some notes, and I think what I've learned from this film is valuable and should be spread to as many people as I can tell. I'm not recapping it to you to tell you to be like Alex. In fact, if you were to take the things that I've learned watching this and put it into your life, I would argue that it would shape you even more to be your own individual self. No, I'm doing this because it's done something for me, and that's what this channel is about. I make videos to tell you guys things that I've learned that will hopefully help you in your life. This channel is about self-improvement and pursuing things that we're too afraid to do. And what is Alex also mostly known for? Being the man without fear. But first, I would like to disclaim that that's actually not completely accurate. When I was seeing all those edits on TikTok, oh my goodness, TikTok is like the platform for spreading misinformation. Everyone's talking like, this guy is a red flag. He doesn't experience fear, so therefore he doesn't have empathy. Actually, if you were to watch the movie, you would see that when he gets an MRI scan, it shows that his amygdala does in fact work. He just needs a higher dose of simulation. And I've also seen lots of clips of him expressing that he has fear. There's a clip of him holding on to a cliff, like back to the cliff, and he's like actually taking a second because he's expressing that he's freaking out. The Alex Honnold admitted that he was freaking out. Yes, he experiences fear. He may not be the man without fear, but he's most definitely the man that knows how to manage it, which with free soloing is something you have to master. But I'll talk more about that later. In the movie Free Solo, which won an Oscar, by the way, which is so cool. I mean, this guy just is winning in life. Alex has set up the goal of free soloing El Cap, which is a massive natural landmark scaling nearly 3,000 feet tall. It's a world-renowned destination. Lots of rock climbers go there. But in this movie, Alex has made up his mind that he's going to scale this whole thing no equipment. This movie does a really good job of showcasing the rock climbing community. There's different routes, different levels, for lack of better terms, on this cliff face. You've got techniques, you've got names, you got jargon for things that you do to correctly pass each level, or I guess they would call it pitch. He's like writing down in his journal the exact step-by-step guide for what he should do to climb this thing. And with this methodology, we get to see what it takes to be a professional, to be one of the best in this sport. He climbs and scales El Cap dozens of times in order to route out the path that he needs to take. He's not just doing this cold turkey, like he's putting the reps in. He's also doing mental exercises, and that's where I step in. I want to explain to you his philosophy. On top of him physically mapping out the route, he also makes a mental map. He's making a mental imagery. He's essentially having a future experience of this thing. And with these elements in hand, he prepares himself. He has mental fortitude for what he's going to experience. What he was doing here to prepare for El Cap was what is called mental rehearsal. With this method, he uses a kinesthetic approach. By mentally experiencing the physical sensations and feelings of the movements. When he's out on his practice runs and he's at a difficult part, he imagines what it would feel like if he was stuck right there and with no way down and no way up. He puts himself through this mental rehearsal day in and day out and essentially experiences the climb multiple times before he actually does it. Because if he's going to climb this thing without a rope, he needs to imagine what it would feel like to climb without the rope, without having that security, which I would say is the first notable thing that I've learned from Alex. If there's something difficult that you're planning to do, if there's a goal that is gigantic, that's ahead of you in the near future, experience it beforehand. Mentally put yourself through it and put yourself through the worst case scenarios just so you know what it feels like, so you know how to recover from that. If we put this into the everyday life, you know, you're going to an interview for a high stakes job, something that you're really wanting to bag. Run the possibility of you stuttering, run the possibility of you being late, run the possibility of farting when you shake the guy's hand. Run everything. And seeing Alex use this approach only verified this even more. I could already see it being applied to my personal life through like a various amount of things. I know it may not be groundbreaking. Probably Batman learned this from a Tibetan monk. But to me, it's really something that I didn't think too much about. And after watching this movie, I think I'm going to start doing it more. On to the next thing. I want to talk more about how he handles his fear. He experiences fear like everybody else, but he needs that higher dose now because he has trained his mind to be a lot more fortified over the amount of times that he's climbed and free soloed and probably risked his life. He's trained that part of his brain to just be able to process fear a lot better. But it's not in the way that you think. Like, you see, Alex says that you should experience your fear. When you do that, you're not trying to control it. You're just trying to step outside of that. You're not trying to suppress your fear. You're just trying to expand your comfort zone through practice and repetition so that it feels normal to you. You're working through the fear until it's not scary anymore. So I've said it in other videos before, but outside of YouTube, I make music. I'm a music artist. And over the past couple years, I've been stepping outside of my comfort zone of being just, you know, like a bedroom producer, someone who doesn't really go out into the public to be perceived. He just like, you know, I just upload stuff. If you're in a similar boat and you want to get better at doing something scary, like, I don't know, expressing your musical talent in front of people, then the best way for you to do that is to just do it over and over. And I'll tell you, the first handful of times that I performed, I was a mess. I didn't know what the hell I was doing with myself, and I was scared shitless. But gradually over time, the more I did it, the more it became comfortable to me. It's still there. I'm not controlling this fear, but I'm now managing it. This can apply to anything that you're scared of but want to get better at. You want to get better at talking publicly. Put the reps in. Keep doing it. All these examples may not be as high risk as scaling things that could, you know, if you fail, you die, but the philosophy still applies, and that's awesome. So for this point, don't suppress your fear. Don't try to control it. Just manage it by expanding your comfort zone and repeating it. Moving on to number 3, let's talk about his upbringing. Let's talk about his childhood and what his essential building blocks were to how he views life now. I'll be real, it's not the most healthy thing, and that's why I said earlier in the video, I'm not recapping these points to tell you to be like Alex, but to, you know, incorporate it in your life to make yourself more grounded and complete. Even though this one isn't that healthy, I still think you can manage it and tweak it a little bit. Let me explain. So in the movie, it shows his family dynamic. It shows how he was raised. His family didn't hug that much. The love word was barely used. All of this that he experienced in his childhood may have inadvertently affected his self-worth, or at least how he views self-worth. And I think the biggest component to all of this was his mom. It seemed like she ingrained in him the biggest philosophies that he portrayed in the movie, and the philosophies that I'm sure he still has within him today. He said that some of his mom's favorite sayings were, almost doesn't count and good enough isn't. He even said, and I quote, the bottomless pit of self-loathing, that's definitely the motivation for some soloing. And when he said that, he seemed very self-aware, but still. His mom seemed to prioritize that mentality of achieving and being a winner, having excellence, which are all things that he accentuates even more throughout the film. For the context of the concept of soloing El Capitan and falling to death, he says, if you're seeking perfection, free soloing is as close as you can get, and it does feel good to feel perfect. There's a point in the movie where there's a dynamic that's shown between his then girlfriend Sani and himself. He even said that for her, the point of life is happiness, and for him, the point of life is performance. He said, and I quote, anybody can feel happy and cozy, but nobody achieves anything great by being just that. To him, it's about being a warrior. It doesn't matter the cause. This is your path and you will pursue it with excellence. All that meaning to say, for this third philosophy, there's clearly like a negative to it. It's putting yourself up to a standard that can be unrealistic. It could even be damaging. Like, you need to perform. That's why he free solos. That's the closest form of him achieving perfected performance. It requires him to be spot on with every decision, every move he makes, because without perfect precision, he slips and he dies. That's the ultimate trade-off. He even said this in a scene that was talking about a friend of his, a fellow climber, Uli. I believe at the time, Uli had recently died from free soloing himself. And in this scene, he's talking about this with Sani. He was explaining his outlook on the whole situation. It seemed like he knew what was at stake. He knew the trade-off, which was chasing this feeling of performing perfectly or not doing that and dying. It seemed like he had a mutual understanding that his friend did this for a reason. He died doing what he loved doing. He knew the mentality, he knew the sacrifice, and it's probably because he does that every time there's a climb that's risking his life. When Sani asks, what do you think Uli's wife felt? He replies with, what did she expect? And I'm speculating here, I'm like reading between the lines. In his mind, it should be obvious. When someone's on this path, this is what is prioritized, no matter what the stakes are. And this is even reflected in his relationship with Sani back then. She then asked, do I feel like an obligation for you to consider being safer? And then he replies, no, you don't feel like an obligation at all. With like absolute certainty, by the way. Like this guy is cold. And I know he doesn't mean to be cold. I think that's just how he is as a person. Like, he's just blunt and straight to the point. Like, I'm sure he cares deeply, even at the time, like held her to high regard and had something special for her. But this is his mentality. He chose this life. He chose his path and he decided to pursue it with absolute excellency. I've said a lot of things. What is this third philosophy? Essentially, it's what he says is the warrior spirit. When you choose to pursue something and to go down a certain path, you need to pursue it with everything you've got. Don't pursue it with moderation. Don't make excuses. Don't go halfway. Pursue it with absolute perfection and excellency, which I can agree to a certain extent. I think in life, you need to be decisive with whatever it is you choose. And when you do decide on something, you should be purposeful. Every move you make in this path should have the intention of moving forward. Even when you need to take 2 steps back, think ahead for when you take 1 step forward. And I don't think he's telling you to be perfect right away. I think he's telling you that's the goal. That should always be the goal, is to try to be perfect. And I agree. As a music artist, I want to be able to deliver the very best. At least for me, I know that's what differentiates me from everybody else, is if I can be the best at what I do. Where I step away from Alex's philosophy is the prioritization of things. I think you should be a bit more considerate with other people in your life. Do consider your loved ones, your friends, family. You're not just like throwing your life out there. There can get to a point where things can be unhealthy if you're just prioritizing your path and spending so much time that you're just not in the present world. Like, I think that's where I need to have a disclaimer for like if I'm trying to impart this philosophy to you guys. But I'm sure that's not exactly what Alex means. And I'm sure that he's also gotten better with being empathetic and considerate to others. I watched this Taipei 101 film. I can tell like he loves his wife, he loves his kids. And I see that through other forms of media as well. Like I'm on YouTube, I'm hearing him talk about his kids, I'm hearing him talk about Sunny. And even in the movie Free Solo, which I'm referencing the most in this video, they were only dating for a year at this point. I knew that he loved Sunny. I really did. I couldn't help but appreciate Sunny as well because I felt like, I don't know, she was like the heart for Alex. All that meaning to say, there's a delicate balance to this whole thing. I agree with it still. Know what is at stake with the path that you've chosen. Know what it is that you might have to do. Understand the sacrifices, understand the trade-off, and approach it to be the very best. With that being said, those are the 3 big philosophies that I've learned after doing a hard dive into Alex Honnold and his whole appeal. I failed to mention earlier that I was going to talk about 3 philosophies, but here we are. And I also failed to mention that one of the main things that also drew me into researching Alex Honnold, again, the misinformation on TikTok that was basically making urban myths about Alex, like, presumptions. One of them was that he has no fear, so he doesn't really function like a normal human. He doesn't have consideration and empathy. Debunked, he obviously has plenty of fear. He just knows how to manage it well. But another popular thing I was seeing in comments was that he wasn't loving and considerate to his family, aka his now wife Sani and their 2 kids. Their argument is that since he's risking his life climbing big things still, and he's got this family now, he shouldn't be risking his life pursuing a dream of his. He should prioritize his family more. To which I say, you're correct. You shouldn't prioritize anything over family, especially your wife and your kids. But I don't think they see the whole picture. I also believe that they're assuming a bit too much. We don't know Alex and his family's lives, but from what I see and how I'm reading Alex, he's a very down-to-earth guy. This guy isn't performative one bit. He loves them kids, man. And he loves his wife like dearly. When he finished the climb on Taipei 101 and he was hugging his wife, I just saw it. I knew it. I knew it right there. It's just the way he is. Sometimes he looks disinterested or like, I don't know, a bit cold. People were commenting like, does he even know his wife? Like, have they met before? I'm like, bro, not everyone has to be like how you depict a man that's catering to his wife. Not everyone has to be that same picture. People express love in different ways. All this to say, you're asking this guy to also give up something that he loves. I'm not arguing that he loves rock climbing more than his family. I'm sure he knows how to prioritize the 2. But asking someone to give up on something that they look forward to every day, something that gives them such a feeling of exhilaration and that feeling of perfection, that's a lot to ask for. He's risking his life, but he's not just throwing his life away. He's not reckless like that. Watching him climb Taipei 101, I could see every move that he made, every step, every pull up, every climb. He did that with absolute consideration and intention. At the end of the day, it's just Alex doing Alex things. This is what he loves to do, and he's gonna keep doing it. But at the same time, he will always consider his safety because he has a family to go back home to. I don't know, man. I support people that have strong fruition and a strong sense of direction. And if this is what he decides to do, and he knows the stakes completely, more than we would ever know, then I'm not one to judge him. But yeah, wrapping things up, he's a fascinating guy. I could not help but be very intrigued by him. Not only does he have rock hard abs, but he has incredible philosophies as well that I think are very impactful. I'll leave you with one last thing. In the context of warrior spirit and the pursuit of excellency in what you do, you face your fear because your goals demand it. Bye.